Hello and welcome back to another edition or episode of Pass the Syrup, the agency podcast run by agents, always featuring agents, is for agents. Today, a special episode, joined by three fantastic agents who all have something in common. They are connected to the Women in Estate Agency group. So we've got Clare Hughes of EXP, who I've had the pleasure of having dinner with, not just the two of us, it was a directors dinner group thing. But
people will talk then.
Well, let them. That's okay. That's okay. Which was really, really nice. We've got Liana Loporto Browne, who is the most difficult woman in the world to get hold of to feature on your podcast. I can absolutely confirm that. But I bumped into her a week or two ago, and here she is. So great to have Liana on, and also Verona Frankish, CEO of Yopa, who is, I'm told, extraordinarily tough on times, which is music to my ears. So welcome, ladies. How are you all?
Really well, thank you. Yes, the sun is shining in East London.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having us, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Ben. And you did get me to agree to do this whilst you were having a massage on our Women in Estate Agency stand.
Wow,
at the EA.
This is already sounding a bit sleazy. I've been out for dinner with him and he's having a massage with you.
Yeah, we've really sort of gone off the deep end there. My wife will watch this in a week and be asking serious questions. A massage on the Woman in the Estate Agency stand, that really does sound questionable. But it was nice of you to give me that massage, Liana, so thanks. No, really not what happened.
Categorically confirmed that I did not get
just to be clear, definitely not what happened. Right, as always, we are going to go straight into the big question. So, slightly different setup this week. We are doing a question around Women in Estate Agency. Really great subject matter for us to be discussing. But normally we would have guests on that have slightly different views on things. And I'm not suggesting the women don't have different views, but I'm going to play devil's advocate today to make sure there's enough spikiness in the conversation and people get enough value out of this conversation. Because as someone who I think I've got my finger on the pulse of estate agency, I would happily put my hand up and say I don't know enough about the Women in Estate Agency cause and what the group is and what it stands for. So if I don't, I can categorically say there's a lot of agents out there that don't. So that's the goal for today. My question to you is there really an issue in our industry that requires a group like Women in Estate Agency to solve it? The floor
Who's going to go first? Yeah. Well, of course, yes, there is. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. End of, really. No, anyhow, but it's, I mean...
And that is where we end the podcast.
But we hope that one day groups like this won't be necessary. I mean, that is ultimately the aim. But when Leon and I first started talking about it, we just thought that we might get a couple of hundred people in a Facebook group. Within days, it was at a couple of hundred. And people say, oh, this is fantastic. We've never seen anything like this before. It's something we can share, we can talk, can support one another, empower one another in a really safe space. And we're now at 3,000 members in that group. And of course, we have this fantastic advisory committee chaired by the wonderful Verona Frankish, who, as you say, is really hot on timing. So we have really good, productive meetings now. And yes, of course, it's still necessary.
Okay. So it started with the Facebook group. So I know a little bit more about the history now than I did maybe a month ago. So where did the Facebook group come from?
Claire and I, so I found it extremely difficult having a senior role in the industry to go to a role model that could guide through a challenge, even going, having kids, coming back to work. And Claire and I thought, let's talk about it, because these are challenges that women are facing every day, but we're not talking about it. We're just doing what women tend to do, get on with it. And that's when we started speaking to women within the industry that had been through the journey, whatever it wasn't necessarily in and around kids, but just around working, flexibility, promotions, all sorts, surveyors turning up at appointments and being asked if where the man is, where the surveyor was. We've had conversations in that group which we wouldn't normally have on a more public platform like LinkedIn, and they have been instrumental to really guiding other women through difficult challenges that they might find in their everyday kind of career. And I think Claire and I hit on something, and then it just mushroomed. I'm using Verona's word because it is, and our wonderful chair Verona has now taken it to the next level. But it was a small group to start, and I think, to answer your question, there are various reasons why it's really important. There's still a massive pay discrepancy between women and men. There are still issues in and around safety with women in the workplace, and women do not speak up with the challenges that they face on a public platform. And it's created the safe space where women can empower each other and help each other. And I think we're really proud of that. Verona?
Yeah, look, I totally obviously agree with Claire and Liana in terms of the reason that the group was set up and the fact that it has literally blown up hugely. But if I sort of take it back a little bit, because let's be honest, this is not the only industry where we have an issue with a lack of equality and equity. You know, and I started my leadership career 100 years ago now. I was in retail. I then moved across into financial services, and I'm now in property. And across all of those industries, there are women in construction, women in retail, women in business, women in property, women in residential property. There is an issue broader than women in a state agency. There is a significant lack of equity as a base level for women to have opportunity in the same way that men do. Liana just touched on one of them about the equity pay gap. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, Ben, but yesterday was Equal Pay Day. And what that means is the 22nd of November represents the day that if you take women and men's salary next to each other across a year, women stop getting paid for the rest of this year if you were to look at how equal their pay is. So we are effectively working for free for the rest of this year. How can that be fair? How can that be right? Every single business knows that women bring something different. And unfortunately, because we haven't had the opportunity in the past across many, many sectors, then we haven't been able to demonstrate that. So we can only influence the sector within which we operate. So women in the state agency for us, as you can tell, we're super, super, super passionate about it.
So yeah, you definitely are passionate. Okay, let me fire some things back, some questions. The pay discrepancy thing. So sorry, let me give you my background so you understand that I'm really not a fan of the word privilege. I think it gets misused quite a lot, but I've maybe got rose-tinted glasses on. Maybe that's the way for me to describe it. In my early days, I would say 4 out of 5 of my managers as I progressed through estate agency were women. So I look at senior leadership in agency as always being women. So that is only my journey. Given in my old business, we had a fairly even split in the leadership team, and we had a very even split from male to female across the entire business. That was a business of about 60 people. My friends in agency, lots and lots of women, lots and lots of business owners. I've definitely got a type. At dinner, I sit next to Claire, I sit next to Angie Cooney, I sit next to Wendy Peterman, and they're my mates who are messaging me and stuff. And so I look at it, and through a conversation I've had, and I'm clearly wrong because I've got a biased viewpoint because I'm just looking at my own experiences. But I look at it and think, is there actually an issue? Because I see so many strong, high quality women in good roles doing good things. And certainly, you can be at a conference, and I guess there is more men than women. But my view, and I think it's probably a view shared by quite a few who are not experiencing it themselves, is that it doesn't look like there's an issue from the outside.
And therein lies the challenge. Therein lies the challenge, because, and we acknowledge this as a committee, because there is an awareness issue, because I would say you are privileged because you've been surrounded by a balance, I would say, of men and women in senior and right through the ranks. And if you look at our sector, actually the skew in terms of male-female split, there is 53% women and 47% male in totality, over 400,000 people in this industry, and there's about a 53% balance. Now that reasonably reflects, I guess, the split in the country. So that it's big industry, there's a lot of people involved in this, so therefore that makes sense. the challenge is when you move up the ranks in a state agency. Now, there is no question in the last 10 years that has improved, no question. And there's also amazing to see a lot more female owners of businesses and estate agency businesses, which is great. But I don't have the stats, and I don't know if there are stats for estate agency per se, but across the FTSE 100, we all know that there's only 9% of women in CEO roles, and the representation in boards is below 35%. So if that's representative of our sector, then that's not. What it means is that we've got a lot of women in the sector, but they're not progressing through the ranks. Now, we all know the facts around this. Women have wounds.
But sorry,
we have children.
That's the FTSE you're talking about. So are you going to use that ratio and assume it's the same in a state agency?
We don't have that ratio in a state agency. That's what I'm saying. So that's the only measure I can kind of equate it to today. And I don't know what it is in a state agency because we don't have the data on that. Nobody's ever completed that data. And I think there is an acknowledgement that as women, we have children, and therefore that typically tends to have an impact on our career. But I think that's part of the issue, Ben, because the equity doesn't start in the workplace per se. It also has to start in the home. And the acknowledgement that there's an issue is not just about the workplace. It's about, is there a fair and equal relationship at home? I'll give you a classic example. So I hired someone about 18 months ago. She was on her first job coming back from maternity leave. She's got 2 children, a 3-year-old and a small baby less than 1. Fantastic at her job, absolutely fantastic. And we had big plans for her to develop through the ranks. And the long and the short of it is she resigned after about 12 months because she couldn't give everything to her job as well as give everything to her family and her children because she didn't get the support at home that she needed. Now, that was a real loss to our business. I tried everything. Tell me what hours you want to work. Can you do short days? Can you do 4 days? What will work for you that will be a good compromise for us as a business? And she just said, I can't do it. I'm not getting the support at home and I can't do it. And that is too true. She's getting the opportunity at work, but unfortunately, she's not getting the support at home to be able to make that balance. And that therein lies our wider problem, not just about in the work.
As you say, a wider problem. And as women, we have to take that responsibility, or some of that responsibility. We can negotiate at work, so we've got to negotiate whatever it is at home to enable you both, if there's two of you that want careers, to enable you both to pursue your careers. But you need to set the boundaries. I always Liana's heard this story so many times. My children are grown up now, but when they were little, we were on holiday and we were going to a water park, and we got to the water park, and we've got all the towels and changes of clothes and things and swimming trunks. And my husband said to me, "Where are my trunks?" I thought all he had to do was pack his own trunks. We've got 3 children, and honestly, something as simple as that made him think, "Oh right, okay, just need to take a bit more responsibility."
We've all been there, right?
I had to buy some really expensive trunks from the shop.
Yeah, I think you can appreciate what Claire is saying, and a lot of the conversations we've had was in and around the amount of things women need to juggle within the working day, within their families, within their private lives, and it's a lot to take on. So navigating that journey and empowering women to navigate it a little bit better, because then there's the imposter syndrome that kicked in all the time, didn't it, in all of these conversations? And that came out pretty much on top, that it was the imposter syndrome after having to step back to have children and then going back into work that kept a lot of women back from progressing to the senior ranks.
But there's also the evidence to say that women don't necessarily apply for jobs. So, Liana, you probably know the numbers on this better. Men are more likely to apply for something if they think, right, there are 10 criteria here. I meet, how many of them is it, Liana? They go for, men want about 3, think, oh, no, there are 10 criteria. And if the men meet 3 of them and they think, oh, well, I'll apply for that. Women want to meet at least 7 of them before they apply for it, because imposter syndrome says that can't possibly be for me. Now, maybe employers need to take responsibility and think, okay, how can we approach people in our team and say, look, we think you'd be really good at, why don't you think about applying for this job, rather than just putting it all on women and say, well, they don't apply. If they don't apply, can't want the job. They just, imposter syndrome really can kick in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, this. I should have interrupted much earlier. There's so many things to discuss. Look, I like the use of your word, Claire, responsibility. So I've got 3 daughters, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and 7-year-old, and I want to raise them to do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, however they want to do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm actually a really as laid back and fun and friendly as I say. I'm quite a strict parent. I'm quite firm with, so when I say do whatever they want, I don't mean causing chaos. I mean they can go out and be whatever they want to be. But I want them to take responsibility for that. And whilst things like imposter syndrome, I think imposter syndrome is not a female male thing. I've suffered from it at times, and I know lots and lots of people have. But it's I don't. The reason I'm feeling that imposter syndrome, I'm not going to put that on anyone else. I need to step forward. I need to take control of that. I need to deal with that. That's it's on me. I can always ask for help, sure. And as a society, that is maybe the direction of travel we're moving in. We ask for help for a lot more now than I think we used to. But at the end of the day, if it's impacting me, the people around me, be it in a work environment, in a personal environment, I have to step up and take responsibility. What's really interesting, the stat you just gave, the 3 in 10, and about asking for help. So I was at a course yesterday, and part of it was a marketing course, really good course. Part of the follow-up process, you have an hour's consultation as a follow-up, because there's so much content, you can discuss anything you want. And this stat was thrown up. Out of everyone who's done the course today, it's only been run 3 times. Everyone who's done the course today, out of everybody who's completed the follow-up, 91% of them have been women. So that's quite interesting when you pick apart. A lot of yesterday's course was actually, because it was a marketing course, we're talking about bias and actually removing the bias if you want to be a really great marketeer. But you've got your internal bias and it's hard to get away from that. So my instinct was like, well, of course women need more help than us. No, I'm kidding. That's not where I went at all. I'm joking. Let's get a reaction.
Let's deal with that one now. No,
my instinct was like, well, yeah, men think they know everything, don't they? When you're out, I remember being on a holiday in America when we were very, very young with my parents, and we were lost. I know lots of people get lost going from the airport in Florida. It's a common thing. And rather than pull over for help, my dad was adamant that he'll find the way. What are you talking about? How you've got no idea where we're going. You're not going to find the way. What, you're just going to guess it? Let's just ask. But no. So there's that. There's sort of maybe social norms, maybe that traditionally men don't like to ask for help. But in my professional environment, I think maybe I'm biased here. I think the women I've worked with are more comfortable to bring things to the table and have that conversation. Although I guess, Claire, to your point, maybe they're not enough. Maybe it's the safeness of the environment that they're in that prevents them from maybe having those conversations. Because
the conversations at work or at home you're talking about?
At work, sorry, I'm saying that at our old business, we run a very, very small business now. There's 11 of us in the team, male, female, split pretty even, but we're like a small family. It's not like a work environment. But the old business where there was 60 of us and it was more structured, there was infrastructure, there was a significant leadership team. I think we created a socially safe environment that allowed people to present any issues they wanted. So we didn't see more men coming forward or more women coming forward. Everyone just came forward. Everyone presented themselves. Everyone applied for different roles. But we also were very, very conscious that, for instance, from a sales perspective, we found ourselves with more men in that role. From an administrative perspective, we found ourselves with more women in that role. And so we would encourage, little moon over here, little moon over there. And that wasn't just, can we get women into the sales force, which is a conversation lots of people have. It's also, can we get men into the administrative team, actually, because there are different ways to look at things, and it's a two-way street.
Ben, can I just tell you a story that might kind of put a bit of colour to that? So I'll tell you about the story of the job that I have now and how the process that I went through for that, because I was approached for this job a couple of years ago and my immediate response was absolutely not. Why would I even want to be a CEO? And there's absolutely no chance that I could do that job. Anyway, as I got chatting to the people at the start of the process, I said to my husband, you know what? Why not? Let me just go through the process And what I will do is I will absolutely be my authentic self. I will just do me, and let's see where that takes me. Because I wasn't in a position where I'd applied for it and I'd set myself up that I really wanted it, I knew that I could just be me. And then if I was successful, then I know that they were getting the absolutely 100% true version of me. So I went through the process and asked lots of questions and was very honest about the things that I'm really good at and the things that I am absolutely not good at. So I was almost at each stage kind of pushing them away, almost living out my imposter syndrome externally rather than internally. And we got to the final, I had to do a final presentation to the board, a physical face-to-face presentation. And I knew I did a really good job in my presentation, but I still felt, no, I didn't get the job because I knew who I was up against. I didn't know who they were, but I knew the profile. They were a global CEO with a CFO background. And I thought that the board would opt for that safe option. And also, of course, he was male. So when I went and did my presentation, I'd arranged to meet a friend. I met her for lunch at the Ned, and we had a bottle of Dom Perignon. And I cheersed to the fact that I'd got to the final 2 in this role. And my friend was saying, "What is wrong with you? You've got." And I said, "You know what? I've got this far, and I'm so happy. And I had another job in the background. I'll be able to say to my kids." Because a big part of what I do is so that I can, to your point about, being a role model and doing the right thing for your kids and showing them that you can be whatever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. I was able to say to them, "Do you know what? I applied for it. I didn't get it, but I was me the whole way through. I've got this other job. All is good. No problem." And my friend was like, "You're crazy. Why are you talking like this?" And I said, "I'm just being realistic, and I'm really cool with that." So had lunch, had a great afternoon. Grenville, who's our chair, called me that night and said, "Can I talk to you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?" No problem. So 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, he said, "I'll call you at 10 to 9. I was in my gym gear. I was about to go in the gym. He texted me, he said, "Can we do this on FaceTime?" And for the first time, I said to my husband, "Why does he want to FaceTime me? He's not FaceTiming me to tell me I haven't got the job." And it was only at that moment that I thought, maybe I have got the job. Oh, this is very bizarre. So my first thought was, look at me, I'm going to the gym, I have no makeup on, my hair is a mess. Very woman problems. So I did the FaceTime with him, and he offered me the job and said that the board was blown away and I was their #1 choice by a country mile. And it was only then that I thought, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And I've never looked back, and that what that did was it gave me the level of confidence to then 100% enter that role from day one and be me and follow through on everything I had told them and be honest with them about who I was beyond that point. And I think there's a lot of learnings from that from a lot of people. Actually the imposter syndrome comes from our own head telling us, trying to protect us from something that isn't actually a problem. But let's just, be more confident about ourselves. And that's the kind of messaging that as in the group, we share and we communicate with all in various different scales with the rest of the group. But I thought that kind of brought to life what you were just referring to.
It's a really lovely story, and congratulations. But it's also, I think it's a story that so many people can resonate with. Imposter syndrome is, another word for it is a safety measure. Your imposter syndrome sometimes keeps you out of danger. You're worried about going to something. It's a protective mechanism that we put in place. What I would say is, though, what the story you've just told should actually, that's what the interview process is meant to look like. You be your authentic, honest self 100% of the time, because how many? I'm sure everyone on this call has interviewed people and thought, wow, wonderful, lovely, great, and realized that the person you're interviewing is not the person you've recruited a few months later. Whereas if both, interview is a two-way street, if both parties are their absolute authentic self 100% of that interview process, and it's a match made in heaven, that's beautiful. That works. It's long term and it moves forward in the right way. But I think, and who knows how many men or women watch this or listen to this podcast? But that's such a good story for everyone that in the interview process, kidding someone into getting a role is the worst thing you could possibly do, because then you're gonna have to be your fake self for the rest
for
of
you and for the business. 100%.
I think more for you than anything.
To the point
jumping in
there
and taking it back to the sorry, Verona, sorry.
Go for it.
Jumping in and taking it back to the Facebook group, that's exactly what the Facebook group, what it was about, being your authentic self in an interview and just kind of being vulnerable in a way. And a lot of people are not able to do that on a public platform. And I think, and you know what's really important, which we haven't mentioned, is that the Facebook group is a closed group for women to learn from each other, empower each other, and bring their stories and journeys. But our conversation, it's really important that we say here that we want men to be part of this conversation, because it's so much stronger when men are part of it. And that's why we have 2 men on our committee now, and it has made our committee, our meetings, our purpose and everything so much stronger. Those men also have daughters, actually, and they want this world to be a fair, equal place for their daughters. So there isn't a necessity for a group like this in the future. But I think it's a really important conversation, because there's a lot that crosses over with men and women, like imposter syndrome does. But I think it's the vulnerability where women cannot show that vulnerability, or don't feel that they're able to show that vulnerability in front of men.
That's really interesting, because I would say that most men don't feel they're able to show that vulnerability in front of other men too. I
was going to ask you the same question, Ben. You know, why would there not be, for example, a group for men in a estate agency? You know, I looked at our group this morning. Actually, I was scanning through the photographs and just some of the posts in the group, as I do most days, have a scan. And it was just filled with women who were sharing struggles, who were supporting each other, who were providing advice, who were asking advice, who were giggling together. There was a photograph of a woman who went out to an event last week, and she was in floods of tears because she witnessed so many vile behaviours from the drunk men in the environment, that she just needed to connect with people in the group, and that gave her that support in the event. There's so many examples of what women are doing positively in that group. And there is absolutely no reason why that can't be replicated in a men in estate agency group, because we have a mental health epidemic in this country. And what women do in that group actually offloads, it shares the burden, and they get the support they need, which then helps them be better in other areas of their lives. Why could that not be replicated? I don't think this is necessarily an equity issue. It's just a supporting and an opportunity for men to be more vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're singing or you're preaching to the converted here. From a support perspective, this podcast was meant to be the medium for an initiative called Agents Movement, which is much more about helping agents because I think this is an extraordinarily lonely business. Irrespective of whether you're a solo operator, you run a business, you're an estate agent and you've been a estate agent for 6 months and you're learning your trade. It's just not one of those industries where collaboration is not quite the right term. It's not one where we support each other that much. A lot of the time you're in competition with each other. I don't like to take stuff home and talk about issues at the dinner table. So who are you having these conversations with? And as it happens, it's okay, I'm 20 years in, I've got enough mates in the estate agency that if I really want to, I can call someone and have a whinge if that's just what I need to do, or get something off my chest, or ask for some help. WhatsApp groups, I think, have been instrumental in the last few years. I think social media, whilst I'm 50-50. I think there's a lot of social media that's not good, not helpful, not appropriate. There is a huge chunk that says to me right now where agency is. If I go back 20 years, at my first gig, I was encouraged to hide the keys when an agent wanted to borrow them. That's what it used to be, versus where we are now, where I sit next to agents every month and we have a bit of dinner and we talk about this, and I'm in WhatsApp groups and I'm doing a podcast, purely because I think agents need help. They need to hear that we're all going through similar struggles. And to your point, Verona, the Facebook group is a great place for people to appreciate that they're not going through this on their own, and hear from other people that can help them move forward in the right direction. And yeah, so I'm in complete agreement. Whether it would work for men, I'm not sure whether men are brave enough to be vulnerable around other men. It is the truth.
With each other. Yeah, yes. Exactly. And I think that's a real shame, to be honest. I really think that's a shame, because the men that I know both in my life and in agency are better people because they are more vulnerable, and they connect with people so much better because they are brave enough to be vulnerable. And that's it used to be seen as a weakness. I think it's a superpower. I absolutely think it's a superpower.
It's social norms again, isn't it? That, men are, there's this sort of this profile that you're expected to be. And I don't think it means you don't fit the profile as it changes, as it moves throughout time. But yeah, maybe in the future there will be some of that. Actually, the conversation I had yesterday with a few of the people sitting on the table was that I've got this conversation coming up today. We haven't got time, but what I also want to explore in agency is, you know, it's not just women and men. There is a real under representation of other groups in this industry. That as happens, it's so underrepresented. There's arguably not enough to create a representation to grow that representation. That is going to require other people to do that. And a big part of yesterday's course, so actually it's worth a quick plug. Simon Ledbetter's 30 years of marketing course was brilliant. I would recommend other people to go on it. A big piece, as I mentioned earlier, was about bias and diversity. And by bringing in diversity, you bring different mindsets, different viewpoints. And again, I'm not talking male, female here. I'm not talking any sort of categorization other than attitudes. And if there's 16 different attitude types, for instance, and get that mix into the team, which can be difficult. I've realized I'm waffling.
No, but you're absolutely right. And just from diversity is seriously lacking, but it's so important. And because our customer base is becoming more and more and more diverse, we are failing our business as well as failing our people if we don't invite a more diverse group of individuals to understand our customer base and serve our customer base. And increasingly, customers are going to choose businesses who demonstrate that they are diverse and they understand diversity, as well as things like the green credentials and how they're looking after the planet. The younger generation, as we know, are just so much more aware of those issues and challenges. Some call it woke, some call it aware. So I think we've got to, as a sector, wake up to that.
And just really quick to jump in there, we started off as it was like a boys club, right? This industry, and you'd employ your kind of your shadow, the person that you thought fitted in and was exactly like you. And now that is changing. To have a successful business, you have to employ people that bring something different to the table. And I think that's the change we're seeing, and that's the change we're navigating. And that involves bringing in more women, more diversity into the boys club, or what used to be the old boys club, because you can't deny that that's what it used to be, a room full of suits.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't want to comment on things I don't know for sure. As I said earlier on, I've had quite a lucky, I think, or quite a well-rounded estate agency experience with regards to male, female. Also, because we're based in West London, what I've noticed actually more than the male-female divide is when I go to a conference, which I'm not a massive conference fan. I'm not a big networker. I think quite often they're set up for something. They're not really for the benefit of everyone attending. But what I notice more than anything is just how white everybody is. Because I'm from West London, and it's a very diverse area of the world. In our business, or in our businesses, we've always had a real eclectic mix. I grew up in an area where it was an eclectic mix of people, so we had a good representation of the people we serve in our local community. And I always think that's strange, actually. There's just, what's the reason for that? Why do we not attract people that are not white at the same scale?
Okay, so is that because we, estate agency as a profession, it is not that well respected? So people don't aspire to work in a estate agency. So if people are speaking to their parents about their career options, they're saying, oh, accountancy, medicine, law, but estate agency is going to come right down the bottom of the pile. So maybe it's
well, I fell into this
societal thing.
I didn't grow up wanting to be an estate agent. I just sort of fell into it like so many do.
Yeah.
And so why did a white male fall into it more than a black female, for instance?
Because to Liana's point, absolutely, Ben, it was definitely very much an old boys club, male and pale, and quite often stale, and therefore
you must watch the podcast.
We've heard it 100 times before. Oh, really? Okay, yeah. So that's absolutely the case, and therefore you attracted people like you, and what that does is safety in that, because that's not going to threaten me. because I understand that. I know what that looks like. I know how that behaves. When I say that, I'm talking about that stereotype.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm not threatened by that. And unfortunately, I think in some cases, we are threatened by that which we don't understand enough. And therefore, bringing women who act differently into leadership businesses and bringing more diverse individuals into businesses, we don't really understand it, and we can't predict how it's going to behave. So therefore, we're a bit nervous about doing that. And I think, unfortunately, that is a fact of where we are today. And we need to be braver in that respect.
What you're talking about is the age-old classic in estate agency, right? We've always done it that way. Like, is there a scarier line? And I'm not talking about any specific areas here, other than you meet an agent, you make a suggestion, you look, we could doing this, we could try that. Look at this new thing's happening over there that could be the future of estate agency. Whoa, we've always taken our own photos. What, like these silly things, that just small things that people are not willing to look at incremental change. So if they won't look at incremental change, when you talk about bringing in people that don't look like me, that's just mind-blowing for a lot of people, I think. So
that's why the Women in Estate Agency group exists and is needed.
Okay, nicely wrapped up, Liana. That's why it's needed. That was the question that I asked originally.
I've taught you well, Liana. Well done.
Yeah. Okay, well, girls, we've got 16 minutes left, and we're miles off. We're miles off. So we're going to go very different. We're nowhere near going to do what we thought we were going to do. Oh, sorry, I have, because this is a conversation that I feel like I could have for hours with you guys. One of the things, I'm not sure who said it at the start, there's an awareness issue. How do people become more aware? What can they do other than join the Facebook group, which is low-hanging fruit? But I guess I couldn't join the Facebook group, could I? It's just for women in the group, right?
No, that's
for awareness, for male awareness, what's the solution?
Okay, so we have a webinar series which is open to men and women. So we've had two so far. One with the one I did last week, that was on flexibility in the workplace, but open to men as well. And of course, we have the conference, the Women in Estate Agency Conference, the second one, which is on the 7th of March next year, which is very much open to men. The first one was open to men as well, but what did we have, about 20% male attendance?
Probably less than that, I would say.
Yeah.
About 15%.
So we want to make sure that we do get more men attending, because, you know, they need to, as Liana was saying, that they need to be part of the conversation. Otherwise, you know, the change will be much slower, or will never happen. So tickets are on sale now for the conference.
And just one thing I would add to that, and you're absolutely right, Claire, you know, listening to other people and understanding other people's stories is really important. But the first thing that men need to do is acknowledge that it is an issue. So, you know, I think a lot of men think, oh, well, in my part of the world or in my business, we don't do it like that. Or, you know, in my experience or my path, it's been fine. But what we're trying to highlight is that in pockets, absolutely, there's brilliant things happening with equity and equality, but there is a wider issue that we have to acknowledge. And unless we open our mind and acknowledge that there is a problem, then we're not going to take any steps to making it better.
And so, sorry, Liana, we can say something.
No, it's just to bring something quite serious to the table. It's also men that have teams of women or have a woman on their team, and the woman is going through something like menopause or something like that. It's at the conference, like last year, we talked about menopause and menopause policies and things that you can do to support your team. And I think there are a lot of topics that we you know, a conference before, an industry conference, hadn't dealt with subjects like, we dealt with anxiety, bereavement, rape. And these were topics which you don't bring to an industry conference. And I think the men that were at the conference really saw and understood more what women go through and what we go through in our industry. And I think that's really important. So as awareness, these are topics that we just don't talk about enough. And that's one way of being part of the movement and part of the change, where we do talk about them and they are recognized.
So let me, I didn't go to the first conference, but let me confirm to people that are thinking about going it. Some people that I take very, very seriously, who are really great agents, who attend all the conferences, several have said to me that your conference was one of the best they've ever attended. And I would imagine without going into too much detail, it's because of those conversations, Liana. It's, you know, sorry, other conference organisers, but they're all very similar, aren't they?
They were genuine.
And we talk about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
We talk about authenticity. That was the most authentic conference that I've ever attended in my entire career, because it was absolutely about educating the audience on all the pertinent issues and to empower them to do something about it. It wasn't, to your point, about maybe some conferences are, their agenda is slightly underhand or maybe not as upfront as it might be. And our agenda, we are not a for-profit organisation, and our agenda is very, very clear. It's about empowering women to believe in themselves and to reach their potential and to have an equitable footing to do that.
And so what's the capacity for this year's conference?
450.
450.
Okay, so we've got conference attendance, we've got the seminar or the sessions that you do, the online sessions. How regular are they?
Monthly.
Monthly. Okay. Any other recommendations for people that are interested, want to get involved, want to learn more? Anything else you can suggest?
We have regional advocates around the country, and if you go to our website, we have a Women in Estate Agency website, go to our LinkedIn page, there's regional advocates around the country. They're in the process of organising virtual coffee mornings, and we're also going to arrange some physical events in the new year. And if you just are anywhere in the country and want to be part of that group, want to understand more about it, then reach out to your regional advocate. And we now have a pussycat.
Sorry, that was my camera turning itself off. I'm back.
Lost you. We lost you.
So the local regional events, are they for male and female, or is that just going to be for women?
The original plan is that it's for female, but I suspect that a man who wants to come along to that, if he's brave enough to do so, is more than welcome.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Hopefully, this will get, this widens the conversation slightly. I know that some of the stuff I've discussed with you guys today, though I've had these conversations where people have presented information like I have to you guys, and the real issue, I'm certain, although I think you actually already said this, Verona, it starts with awareness, and that's where it needs to begin. And there's a lack of awareness, a lack of appreciation, maybe a lack of understanding, and it's unfair. I think, to use the word ignorant sounds really negative and unpleasant for a lot of people. They're ignorant to it without, they don't wish to be, and they wish to help, and they wish to move things forward, and they wish to support people. But like my own story, I've got an extraordinarily fierce mother, 3 daughters, and in my working environment, I've always had women around me in leadership roles. So it's very easy. I think lots of people come from my similar sort of path, and actually female business leaders. I think that's another category that I certainly said to me, it's not an issue to run my own business, that sort of thing, because they're powerful women and they're doing their thing. But of course, powerful women don't necessarily have the same issues as women that find themselves in other positions at that moment in time. So we've got 9 minutes until Verona's going to karate chop us and pull the plug. Oh, sorry, can I ask you something that somebody asked me the other day? The Esters, there's an award category for women in the state agency. The Esters is obviously everyone gets involved with the Esters, but there wasn't any, or if you didn't attend the event, there wasn't a lot of publicity around that award category. Could you explain that for everyone? Anyone?
I'm happy to take it. So yes, what happened last year, because the Esters sponsored and supported our first conference last year, and Simon and Sarah were completely blown away by the support that we had around the conference at the time, and they wanted to do their part to shine a light on some of the amazing women in the sector. So they offered to do a dedicated Women in Estate Agency award for the top 5 women. And it goes through the normal Esters process. And for the first award, we just chose the top 5 scores for women to shine a light on those women across the country. Now, we were at the Esters and we put I talked about the award, and Liana actually presented the awards, and those women were absolutely blown away, because ordinarily they wouldn't necessarily be recognized in the world of the state agency. So winning that special award was incredibly important to them. Now, to evolve that to next year, we are going to put a little bit of basic criteria around that award so that women are very much clear about what they need to do in order to win that award. We're still working with Simon at the minute to determine what that criteria is, but going forward, we'll be much clearer about how you can then put yourself forward to win that award. So more to come on that.
And so, excuse me, this year's winners were the guys who would have picked up the most votes that reference their names, like the old. Because I haven't done the S's in years. We don't.
Correct. Exactly
okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. All right. What are we going to talk about for the next 7 minutes, girls?
What would you like?
I thought you were going to talk about. I thought we were going to do waffle of the week.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's do what,
our unbelievable story.
As anyone who's been on the podcast,
we can do them both.
I'm annoyingly organised and set an agenda, but we're now down to 6 minutes, so we're never going to get through everything. So
right, why don't we extend it for another 10 minutes, right? I can push it back for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, go on. All right. So who wants to go? You want to do you want to tell us something wild, funny, weird? You want to do what you waffle of the week you've spotted out there? Anyone? Liana, I can see you're desperate to go. Go on.
Yeah, I just find it so funny because every time I think about it, I giggle, and I'm gonna, take the mick out of myself. But I went to a valuation, and there was this guy showing me around. Well, his staff was showing me around, and he looked at me and he goes, "Hi, I'm Prince Naseem," and I'm saying, "Oh, lovely to meet you, Prince of where?" I had no idea. Who was the boxer? No idea. So anyway,
that was lost on me. That was completely lost on me.
Well, it wouldn't be lost on a lot of people. On me, it was completely lost. And yeah, so I giggle about it every time because I kind of should have known. I suppose I should have known about him.
How long ago was that?
10 years.
Okay. So yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he
had retired. He was
reasonably well known 10 years ago.
Moments, where you go,
Liana, tell the truth. Tell the truth. If it was today, would you have recognised him? No, you wouldn't have. It made any difference. I knew that.
Also, another Liana story. If she has, a glass or two minute of red wine.
Oh my God, where's this going?
This is going back to Malta when you were 16. She dated somebody very famous.
Oh gosh, I can't believe it's going.
Interesting.
Yeah.
She's not
going to share.
No, it's too early.
Are you going to share who it is?
No, quiz her on that.
Who?
David Beckham.
You dated David Beckham?
Yeah.
Is that true?
I know. It was a long time ago.
Oh, how come you've never told us that? Wow.
Not been drunk enough.
It's my husband's story. He likes telling the story more than I do. In fact, he probably Claire.
Wow, that feels like an online world exclusive that we've got David Beckham's ex on the podcast.
Not quite an ex. Thing with under 21s. He wasn't famous yet. He was, but he was with Gary Neville, with Paul Ince. They come to Malta all the time. My best friend was the daughter of the Minister of Tourism, and we met at a barbecue, and we had 2 wonderful weeks together, and then never spoke again. So that's as far as the story goes.
Wow,
that is brilliant. I love that story.
Verona, have you got anything that's going to live up to
that? Sadly not. But I guess my waffle of the week is: have we been watching I'm a Celebrity?
Oh. No.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've got on my list what constitutes a celebrity.
Oh, don't get me started. That is a whole podcast. There's a whole podcast about that.
Yeah, there definitely is. But let me tell you a little the waffle of the week for me, which is I'm a Celebrity. So on the podcast or on the series this year, I love it, by the way. It's one of the things as a family we watch every year because it signals the run up to Christmas, so we really enjoy it. But basically we have a girl called Nella, who's a 25-year-old YouTuber influencer, and 26 actually, and we also have Fred from First Dates, who Fred, the French hottie. We love Fred. He's brilliant. But they had a little bit of an altercation over dinner the other night. He was cooking, and he happened to reference that he was old enough to be her father. He's 51, she's 26. She happened to tell him the day before that her dad had died 4 years ago. And in the moment, nothing happened. And he was kind of preparing dinner. Nothing happened. The next morning, she gets up and she has this almighty drama about the fact that he had mentioned that he could be old enough to be her father. And she took it. She said it triggered her. It was incredibly offensive to her. And she said he said it with a real attitude. Now, clearly, they played back the clip the night before. He was completely oblivious. He said it in a very, very honest and, kind of just jokey way. He was making fun of himself, if anything. And then he could see that she was being strange with him. And he approached her and said, is something wrong? Is everything okay? She then told him that she triggered. He apologized unreservedly, was so lovely about it. And she's just said, I will not speak to you for the rest of my time. You go over there in this camp and I'll stay here. And she's made this position very, very clear. I honestly, and I'm all for fairness and equality, as you know. But if that was the other way around and it was a man of that age behaving in that way to the woman, the TV company would be dealing with it so stringently. And I feel like she's been allowed to behave in a very bratish way. So it's really got my heckles up this week.
Yeah, I saw it last night.
Style?
Go on, Claire.
Is that her style on her YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is she does?
Well, here's the thing, Claire. I've never heard of her. I don't know her before, but I'm probably not her target addressable market, to be fair. But of course, that stuff gets airtime, right? And that stuff is what's covered in the press, and it's clickbait, and then it's covered up on socials beyond it. And I can't help but feel it's a little bit premeditated at Fred's expense, who is a really nice guy and is actually distraught about the fact that she's behaving this way. So yeah, I'm not impressed.
Whilst Fred's dealing with it right now in the moment, he's coming out pretty good off the back of it.
Oh, he is.
The public.
He is.
The public like a good, the public side with the right person most of the time.
Yeah, they do.
And,
they do.
So I just say clickbait found its way onto my feed on social media. And just the line that really took me away was that she said, I accept your apology, but we're not going to be friends. You only disrespect me once, which is just such an extreme reaction to someone saying, I'm old enough to be your dad. If that's now how we offend people, I am really in trouble.
It sounds to me like he was being self-deprecating. That, he was saying, I'm the old guy, apart from Nigel Farage.
Yeah. Oh, let's not go with Nigel, because he's also been he's also been putting his. Yeah, he's brident.
But back to the documentary, that was I thought it was brilliant. I don't know about you, but I didn't realize how much he had to take after he did that move. I just didn't realize that the whole country turned against him. Can you imagine living through that? I mean,
I didn't see it.
I'll watch it. Right. It's a brilliant documentary. Obviously I watched it. I was like, but yeah,
you just walked away through the celebrities, Liana.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I watched that probably after the Beckham one, did you? Or
yeah.
No,
absolutely
not. But the whole country turns against him, and the way he has to handle that, like mentally, the way he got through that is just. I can't believe how a person can get through that much hate.
Well, in which case he'll definitely manage Nella then. He'll definitely manage the drama around that then.
But Liana, do you think, is that a positive? That because he set himself up, he got the result that I think he wanted, and he would have absolutely known the ramifications that were coming. Someone that...
Watch it. Because the mental turmoil that he's been through, no matter how much, and this is how I left that documentary, thinking, no matter how rich you are, no matter how much you have, going through that, if you watch that documentary, you can feel the mental turmoil that he's been through. And I couldn't believe. So I don't see it as a positive. I don't think he saw it as a positive. I think it broke him, actually.
That's interesting, because he's not been in the limelight so much, has he, in recent years?
Because he got the result he wanted.
Well, yeah, but Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, yeah. 'Cause I don't know if he's a narcissist actually, and I haven't seen the documentary, so I may as well go watch the documentary now and try and work out where. Because the cynic in me says he's made a documentary because he wants to bounce back and he wants to present himself for something else, and now he's in the jungle, which sort of amplifies my feeling around that. And really, he's looking to create a bit of empathy and sympathy for the position that he put himself in, which was completely intentional. But that's just cynical me. Who knows? Could be completely wrong. Haven't watched the documentary
He
yet.
needs to make a bit of money.
Maybe.
Now, my
Maybe.
daughter tells me that somebody's been paid 1.5 million in the jungle this year. I've no idea if that's true. And she said suggested
Who
it
do you
might.
think it would be? Who's the big characters this year? Because I've literally only seen that clip that Verona was just talking about.
I guess it's probably Jamie Lynn, because she's Britney Spears' sister, in the hope that she'll leak some information or share some stories. So, and she's American, so they tend to pay the big bucks for the Americans, I would guess.
Is she famous for being Britney Spears' sister? Is that it?
No, she does have a career,
think
but
she's
I'm not quite
an
sure.
actress
She's
or
an
something?
actor. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she's an actress. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen her in anything, but yeah.
No.
Oh, it's a
But
funny
it's a
world we
good
live
it's
in.
a good point about celebrity, right? It's a very, very good point about celebrity. It's become a celebrity as a career in its own right, which
I know.
I mean, things like Married at First Sight and Big Brother and all of those people, you know, they go on there because they can see the true social media. They have a career that follows on from that world.
Isn't it a funny world we live in?
Bring that to Selling Sunset. Now it's become, instead of, I used to love it. It used to be my guilty pleasure, and now it's a cat fight. It's horrible to watch. It's terrible.
I've only watched one episode. Somebody told me, I said, "Oh, Claire, you love it. You love it." I hated it.
Well, the properties are unreal.
It is you dress.
Yeah. The properties are unreal, but the dresses and the outfits. I mean, who ever rocks up to a showing of a property dressed like that? I mean, come on.
Well, sometimes I do, but not very
often. I'd love to see that. Yeah.
I don't think you would. I'm Claire. I'm the same as you. I watched one episode and said, "This is just not for me." Quite often, this sounds a little bit like my rant of the week. I very rarely watch estate agents on TV and say, "Oh, that's good for business." Quite often, they're not really shows about good quality agency. Can we create some garbage trash TV where there'll be an argument or a fight or someone swearing relentlessly on national television?
But that's the TV version of clickbait, right? That's exactly what it is. It's how do we attract the most eyeballs, and then whenever you get into it, it's quite often not as bad as what it seems. But if we're gonna talk rant of the week, then I'm gonna say mine in one word: the budget.
What were you hoping for, Verona?
Well, I was hoping for at least anything that was going to give our sector a boost. We were overlooked largely, apart from a small tinkering around the sides. But even in terms of what it has provided to the general public, tax cut today's energy increases. Sorry, tax cuts yesterday, energy increases today. It honestly, I just think it was the most non-event for an opportunity and a missed opportunity for our sector to give some kind of positive sentiment to the public, a very much a wasted opportunity.
But it made it appear that it was a tax cutting budget or mini budget or whatever, the autumn statement, and the reality is that everybody will be paying more tax across the board eventually.
What I find strangest of all is that just my opinion, this is the last roll of the dice for the Tories. So if they does that mean are they throwing in the towel? Is that it's just not going to happen?
I'm not sure, actually. My view is, so they're obviously putting some of the tax changes that they're putting in from January. So that's okay. So that's an election winning. Well, I don't think it is election winning, but in their mind it might be. I think they're saving some of the more serious potential changes, like stamp duty, for example, to maybe March, springtime, ahead of an election in May or June, because then it'll be fresher in the public's mind. Cynical, I know, but actually that's not really going to help us, because half of the year will be gone by that point, and the busiest part of our year will be gone by that point. So actually they really ought to have done that now. But
I completely take your point, and logically, I sort of see where I just don't. I'm surprised that if they are going to make a move, that they didn't start to make something a bit more chunky now to get the positivity it's, you know, get the flywheel moving. To get it moving in the spring, based on, you know, an election. I mean, I'm hoping we're general election in Q4, but who knows?
But how many politicians do you know throw the towel in? I mean, really, it's just not in their DNA, is it?
Well, I don't know. I think Rishi sort of almost become removed. He doesn't, you know, the policy changes have become so limp. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is not an attack on the Tories. I'm reasonably anti-politician, actually. Again, you know, self-serving group. Are they really? You know, we could solve the problem of the NHS in 12 months, but we can't do that because then they can't have it as their ticket to the next job. So, yeah, we could solve homelessness in 6 months, but again, we don't want to do those things. So, I'm not. You know, oh God, I'm ranting.
That's the challenge with our system, though. That's the challenge with our system in the UK. Is the cycle of 4 years, and that the fact that they don't make decisions for the long-term good of the country. They make decisions on election campaign cycles, and it's fragmented and it's absolutely flawed.
Yeah, I heard something really interesting on a podcast that we are approaching a cycle they show in history where there's going to be revolution, and the form of governance will change in the next 10 to 20 years because people have become sick and tired of the way we are governed. It's not effective. It doesn't serve the people as it was intended 2 years ago. And actually, if you go back 100 years, I'm not saying I didn't know any of them 100 years ago, but politicians were a little bit more honest in their approach, and they had a different view on what serving the country was. And now it's become, you know, you talk about estate agency being a boys' club. Wow, look at politics.
Exactly. That goes full circle, right? They need more vulnerability, they need more honesty, they need more real. They are all characters of themselves. Even listen to how they speak. I mean, they don't talk like normal people. You know, there is a group of people that seriously needs a shake up.
Yeah,
across all of them.
I wonder if that will happen. If that, you know, it was just it's a bit of an outlandish thing that, you know, this is what happens in society. But I think we're ready for that. I mean, look at housing ministers. How can you allow government to be in charge of housing? They clearly don't care about it. And look at the problems we have.
It's crazy that there's another housing minister. You could practically put a bet on
revolving door.
How does everyone feel about the relaxation on the planning for multiple dwellings? So if you keep the facade, you can change. Yeah. Now you can change the house into multiple. I think that will help first-time buyer market, and I think it will help landlords, smaller landlords too. I like that. I thought it was a good move.
My concern is that there's not enough clarity, and the framework is too loose. So what we see from a conveyancing perspective right now is solicitors and conveyancers doing their utmost to protect themselves around things that were implemented 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so with that being an issue, you know, yeah, you can get a policy to cover it. So many are almost washing their hands of putting a policy in place. And I think this is like the weakest headline grabber you could possibly go for. For housing, we've got to do something. This will do it. But actually, has it been particularly well thought through? No, I mean, Liana, I think you're absolutely right. It should help first-time buyers, absolutely, and free up more opportunity. But I think further down the line, it's going to probably be a bit of a pain in the arse for a period of time.
And it's tinkering around the edges. It is tinkering around the edges when they really needed to do something more meaningful to make a material impact.
What they need to do is build more social housing. But as you said earlier, Verona, all they're thinking about is the next 4-5 years. And
bring down stamp duty.
I don't know if there's any way of ring fencing, you know, so whichever colour government we have next, they just ring fence it and say money has got to go towards social housing. I mean, proper social housing, not affordable housing, because that in big cities is not affordable to the people that need to be there. I mean, this going back to when I've had multiple stays in hospital, and they're usually in central London. I'm always talking to the team, the healthcare assistants that are supporting me, and they're coming in from Romford, but they have to be there at 6 or 7 in the morning. So they get 2 buses and a train to get into work, because there's no way they could afford to live in central London where they need to be. But you know, all the social housing around that area, a lot of it is now private.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the Bank of England, in theory, a committee, the best minds in the country in property, take property making decisions away from government.
Yeah.
I mean, Listen to us, setting the world to rights. Never going to happen. So I don't know why I'm bothering. Girls, it's we're now 2 minutes late after we're 10 minutes late, and I see Verona's. She's giving me the eyes through the camera. This has been really good. For me, personally, it's been really beneficial to hear more detail than I've heard up until now. Conference, just from the website, best place to go to buy tickets. Yeah.
That's right.
Women in the State Agency.
Women's International Women's Day is 7th of March next year. So.
Oh, good timing. Okay, very nice. Well, girls, thank you so much. You've all been brilliant. We are going to finish on one thing. We'll finish with Watkins. We'll hand over to Watkins for his Watkins Whimsy. Us 3, 4 will say goodbye. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Boys and girls, I've got this great idea, okay? Don't tell anyone, okay? Hot off the press. What if you had a plastic box on your desk with cards in? You could call them applicant cards. They can have all your hot buyers in that you could talk to. So if your valuer goes out to a property, you could say, I've got someone. You could even call it Hot Box. Check it out. Old school.